Facts First presents. This forest ranger stumbles upon a mysterious cabin in the woods with a huge surprise inside. Mark Andre of Arcata, California worked as the Environmental Services Director. He loved to be out in the forest, so his job was perfect for him. If you've ever taken a walk through the woods, you would know that there's not too much to see. Yeah, sure, there are trees, rocks, dirt, maybe a few wildlife creatures, but that's about it. Since the forest is pretty common everywhere you go, Mark was shocked by what he found one day in his forest. Mark was working in the Arcata Community Forest marking trees for harvesting. He spent his entire life in the woods in Northern California, and he knew the woods like the back of his hand. At least that's what he thought. He was out working in the forest and he stumbled upon something just past the trees that he had not seen before. It was something he was sure he'd never seen before. He'd spent plenty of time in the area, but still had never noticed this, and when he got closer he realized it was a very elaborate makeshift cabin. It was perfectly camouflaged in the trees. It was clear that the cabin had been built illegally, and he wasn't sure what he would find inside. First, help us spread the word about Facts First by clicking that like button, and also be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell so you don't miss our future videos. When Mark saw this cabin, he thought for a few minutes. He realized that there was plenty of time for somebody to build the cabin since he hadn't explored this area since 1985. Back then, he was still a forest technician. He realized that the person who built this cabin was never expecting to be discovered. And as Mark got closer, he realized the cabin was constructed very well. It wasn't uncommon for forest rangers to find debris found by somebody looking for shelter in the woods, but this was far from random. This cabin was expertly planned and executed. The cabin was 8 feet by 12 feet, about 15 feet high. It was even built on a solid concrete foundation. Whoever constructed the cabin must have had carpentry skills because there was a peaked roof, a front porch, and an awning. This was not something that somebody would build just to keep warm for the night. This was designed to be a permanent home. What surprised Mark the most was that it was camouflaged so well that he couldn't see it until he was only about 12 feet away from it. The person who built this put it in the perfect spot where it wouldn't be detected. Mark was also surprised that there were no trails for footpaths leading to or from the cabin, and there was also no trash littering the area. Whoever built this cabin and lived there really respected nature. After finding the cabin, Mark decided to call 2 forest technicians, Javier Noguera and Nick Manfredonia, to get some help. He also called in the local park ranger, Heidi Grossman, for help. The group went out to the site and went inside. The door was locked with a padlock, so after breaking the lock, they were able to get in. When Heidi entered the cabin with her gun drawn, she yelled, "Arcata Police!" But there was no response. When they discovered that there was nobody in the cabin, they began to look around, and they were hoping the contents of the cabin would give them an idea of who the owner was. They quickly noticed the cabin was very tidy. There were shelves in the living room area and the kitchen area. They had housekeeping supplies and assorted cans of food stored on them. There was also a rocking chair, a coffee table, and a tea kettle on it. There was also a pot-bellied stove for cooking. Whoever built this cabin was not struggling in the wilderness. When they got to the bookshelf located in the corner, they found titles including Catch Me If You Can and Medicinal Plants of the Pacific West. This is when they realized it must have been an older person living in the cabin. The group wanted to find something to let them know who had been living there, and they found a handwritten list of things to do and get, and this list told them a bit about what the resident needed and when they were there. And the list read, extended brush wall, build a bench, season cast irons, get 6-inch pipe flashing, and get tongs. And the list was dated January 22, 2011. When the team found a copy of the Humboldt State University's The Lumberjack newspaper dated March 25, 2015, they were able to piece together a timeline when the owner lived there. They found 2 driver's licenses, and they each had the names of different people. Since they couldn't determine who was living there and that camping on public property was illegal, they hung an eviction notice for the resident. A few weeks later they returned. The cabin was gone. All that remained was a squatter's symbol. The entire cabin had been completely cleaned up. They didn't even leave behind a nail or a scrap of paper. Mark realized at that point He would never find out who once lived in that cabin or who built it. Subscribe for more.